Let us now settle into a spirit of worship with a moment of quiet to be followed by the music of Doug Hammer, Bare Trees. Sorry. Let us now settle into a spirit of worship with a moment of quiet to be followed by the music of Doug Hammer, Bare Trees. You're also invited at this time to light a silent candle of joy or sorrow.
We light our chalice this morning to remember the sacred rhythm that pulses beneath all things. The rhythm that says enough. Enough for each of us. Enough for all of us. In a world that urges endless striving, we kindle this flame to reclaim the wisdom of rest, the courage of redistribution, the holiness of limits freely chosen for the sake of one another. May this small fire remind us that abundance grows when we loosen our grip, that community deepens when we share what we have, and that rest is not a luxury, but a birthright, a practice, a promise we make to each other. As our chalice burns, may we imagine an economy shaped by compassion, a society grounded in fairness, a life paced by breath rather than burden. Let this flame call us back to balance, call us back to justice, and to the spaciousness of Sabbath.
like one of those Japanese bowls that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's when they used back then, when they had a bowl to mend. It did not hide the cracks. It made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be, but in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls. I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see. See that how they shine of gold.
You should watch what Aaron puts you up to, so Udgay warning me. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, a congregation of love, hope, and justice, inspiring people to take on the challenges of a changing world. My name is Diane Mann, and I'm one of your worship associates this morning. We begin by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, learn, live, and worship on the seized ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people, who thrive and remain active as the Nipmuc tribe. If you would like to learn more about the Nipmuc community, please see the brochure in our foyer. We offer a special welcome to those of you who are new or visiting with us the first time this morning. We are delighted that you are here. We hope that you will join us in Fellowship Hall following the service for refreshments and conversation. It is also Soup Sunday. If you have questions or desire more information about this service or any of the ministries and programs of this congregation, please do not hesitate to ask. We invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews. These cards can be placed in the offering plate or given to one of the ushers or greeters this morning. For those of you joining us online this morning, we offer you a very special welcome. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better, as you are able, please place your name on your video feed. Please take a moment to sign one of the attendance clipboards that are now being circulated. Though you are not obligated to sign, we appreciate your information and will use it only for church purposes. During the service, we offer an opportunity to share a brief personal joy or sorrow. Please print it on an index card in the pew and drop it in the collection plate when it comes around. These cards will also be posted outside the minister's office to be shared with our friends at other services. For those online, you can place a joy or sorrow in the chat, and we will share it during this time in the service. In the foyer, there are listening devices, large print service programs, and hymnals for those who may find their assistance beneficial. Please see one of our ushers who will please to assist you. I now invite you to turn your technology to worship mode. So I have a special announcement this morning. Women's Runaway Weekend. Yay! So for those of you who don't know what Women's Runaway Weekend is, approximately 20 of us, women or people who identify as women, go away to some place an hour and a half, 2 hours away for fun, relaxation, getting to know each other better, and whatever hijinks we come up with. Hijinks in Latin, Pig Latin is I jinx hay. What? Yeah, I'll try not to break a leg this year. So, Women's Runaway Weekend is scheduled for May 1st through 3rd this year. That is like the only weekend that the church calendar accommodates. And we thought we were going to go to row camp. We may still go to row camp. However, row camp's prices have gone up significantly. In fact, 40%, which may be very difficult. So Dee Hudson and I looked, Dee Hudson, our wonderful sexton, who co-chairs this with me, looked at it last week, talked about some things, and we'd like your input. So after coffee and soup, please gather in the classroom across from the office for a little bit, and we'll get your opinions about what to do. Thanks. Finally, please note the announcements on the back of your program. There will be time for other short verbal announcements following the postlude. We are so glad you are here and hope that this morning is an opportunity for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. Thanks.
Good morning. The reading is about economics by Anonymous. Come in, you who are weary from the relentless pace of the world. Come in, you who carry the weight of never enough, who measure your days in productivity and your worth and output. Here we practice another way. In this hour, we remember the ancient wisdom of Sabbath, not as a rule, but as a rhythm. Not as a pause from life, but a return to it. Sabbath economics invites us to imagine a world where rest is a right, not a reward. Resources are shared, not hoarded. Value is measured in relationship, not accumulation. And every person has enough because we choose enoughness together. So let us gather our scattered spirits. Let us loosen our grip on urgency. Let us breathe into a more generous imagination. Come, let us worship, not the goods of scarcity or striving, but the sacred possibility of a community shaped by justice, compassion, and rest. Come, let us worship together. And now, stand as you are able, doing the opening hymn, number 1017, We Are Building a New Way.
We are At this time, I would like to call our basket bearers forward, participants in our religious exploration program who come forward each Sunday with their baskets of change for change. For those of you who are newest among us, this is the weekly opportunity that our children and youth have to contribute to the emergency fund of the congregation. If you have change that you would like to contribute, please raise your hand, and one of our basket bearers will be quick to find you.
Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these we all shall die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Peace and justice, that's the seed. We can feed our every need.
Eighth principle moment, 'tis you.
I wasn't sure if the eighth principle moment would be before or after my granddaughter went into somebody else's care. I'm glad she's having fun someplace else. My name is Mara Pintlarge. I'm doing the eighth principle moment. The eighth principle is saying that as a congregation, we're going to work to try not to be racist, try not to be oppressive in other ways, sexism, classism, homophobia, other isms like that. they seep into us from society. We don't ask for it, we don't want it, but it kind of infiltrates our brains. One way that I've been aware of in this congregation, I'm sorry to say, not everybody goes to college when they're a teenager. Some people finish high school, barely getting through high school. They're not going to go to college. So try not to ask, where's she applying to college? Or where's he going to go to college? Because if they're not, here's a better way. Here's a better thing to ask if the kid is nearing the end of high school. What are they looking forward to after high school? And the answer may be sleeping late. and then you say, yeah, I like that too, or whatever you say. Just to be aware that not everybody's going to have the same experience that your family has, to just try and have a more open mind about these things. That's my 8th principal moment. Oh yes, I want to say something about the Martin Luther King breakfast, which is a week from tomorrow. I'd love if a whole bunch of you could come. 5 of us are going already. It starts early in the morning, Monday, a week from tomorrow, at Assumption University on Salisbury Street. I'm going. Aaron's going, Susan Crossley, Evan Wilson, and Beth Posner-Waldron. So there's 5 more seats at our table. You could have one for $35, which includes the guest speaker, who was the head of the Worcester Educational Collaborative. They're the folks that made the city of Worcester change the way we elect the school committee so that it's not all the white people getting all the votes for the school committee people. So she's put some thought into racism and the city of Worcester, and she should be a good speaker. There's also breakfast, involved. And lots of singing and young people getting awards for writing good essays and lots of, real feel-good. About 700 people in the gymnasium at Assumption. I love it. We sing "We Shall Overcome" at the end. It's very nice. So I hope you'll join us.
Just as long as "we shall overcome" is not "we shall overcome the flu." Seems to have been running rampant. Many of you have survived and are beginning to thrive again, and some of you are still dealing with it, and I'm sorry. This has been a long week, has it not? I think we come to this sanctuary in order to be able to be filled in some fashion from all of the ways and the woes of the week. And as one of your pastors, I have found myself this week staring at the news, attending vigils, community meetings that are striving very hard to figure out ways of responding in order to protect those who have been made most vulnerable by the current scenario that we face, and also in conversation with colleagues. And, there are those moments when you look at what the scriptures are assigned for the week, and I think to myself, how in the world are my colleagues going to deal with this in this moment? And so I decided to challenge myself to do it instead of to wonder about them. And it came out of an interesting conversation among ministers. And if you ever wanted to know how ministers hang out, it's usually with a bucket load of coffee, something very, very sweet, and a conversation starter like, what if John the Baptist never existed? Would it make a difference? And I'm thinking to myself, the world is burning. And you're asking me about the prophet John the Baptist. And then I went back to the story. And here's what happened to me this week. We uncovered, this group of ministers, an new archaeological evidence that has unearthed a conversation over coffee a millennia ago. So picture this friend says, stirring their drink absent-mindedly. It's one of those moments when the world feels heavy. Yes? Politics is messy. Yes? People are anxious. Yes? Everyone is trying to figure out what comes next. And right in the middle of that, this guy, John, shows up in the wilderness. Leans in a little bit. He's not exactly subtle. Rough clothes, wild energy, the kind of presence that makes you sit up straighter. But people keep going out to hear him anyway. Something about him feels honest, like he's saying the thing everyone's been avoiding. Your friend takes a sip, tells folks it's time to turn around, to really turn around, not just feel bad for a minute, but change their lives. And people actually ask him how. Like, okay, what does that look like? And John gives them super practical answers. If you've got extra, share it. If you're in a position of power, don't abuse it. If you're collecting money, don't take more than you should. They smile a little. It's wild how simple he makes it sound. Not easy, but simple. Their expression shifts. Of course, some people start whispering that maybe John is the one they've been waiting for. You know, the big one. The promised one. And John shuts that down fast. He's like, nope, I'm just the warm-up act. Someone's coming who's going to go way deeper than I ever could. The friend pauses, letting that moment breathe for a moment. And then Jesus shows up. Quietly, no entourage. He just steps into the same line that everyone else is waiting in to be baptized. And John sees him, and you can tell that he's a bit thrown off, like, you? Here? Now? Jesus, however, is steady. He's choosing to stand with everyone else, not take shortcuts. They wrap their hands around their mug, and so John baptizes him. And Jesus comes up out of the water, something shifts. It's like the sky cracks open for a second. There's a sense of presence, gentle, settling, almost like a bird coming to rest. And there's this voice, not loud, but unmistakable, voice that says, you are my beloved, and I delight in you. And that's the moment that everything changes. Not because Jesus suddenly becomes someone new, but because the truth of who he is gets spoken aloud in front of everyone before he's done anything public, before the miracles, before the teaching. Just beloved. They sit back, letting the weight of that settle in. It's kind of amazing, they say quietly. The whole movement begins not with a power spectacle, but with a person standing in a river, choosing solidarity and hearing love spoken over him. It's a story, interestingly enough, that all four of the Christian Gospels tell, with subtle and not so subtle differences. The one we just heard is based on the Gospel of Luke, which is my favorite of the four stories. Like Mark, Luke reports at the end of the story that the voice descends with a message that is very intimate and very personal. You are my beloved. The other two Gospels have the voice talking to the crowd, announcing that Jesus, this one, is special. He is my beloved. In my heart of hearts, I think Jesus himself were to recount this scene, he'd prefer to express the possibility that that voice, you are my beloved, was also meant to be heard intimately by those who witnessed the event. A prophetic confirmation of the love that is available to all of those who are willing to take on the mantle of faithfulness in a world which seemed to be going madder by the day. And I think it's a scene worth remembering now. Again, as the world feels tight around us, when policies constrict, when violence erupts, when innocent people are killed or hurt, and systems fail to fulfill their stated purposes, when the most vulnerable among us are asked to bear the heaviest burdens, and innocent people die. And yet, in every generation, people discover again that resistance is not only protest or policy. It is the daily practice of caring for one another when the world refuses to. That's the other reason that I like the Lukean account of Jesus' entry into his ministry. Because it is the only gospel rendering the story that foreshadows the practical application of an ethic of resistance to violence of empire and the inequality that it maintains in order to control a population. All of the gospel accounts record that John the Baptist wasn't a particularly pleasant person to be around. I've challenged my colleagues about this. I said, I will show up any Sunday in a bearskin suit. And I will scream profanities at all of your members and friends. And then stand up and invite them to work for justice. And see how many of them listen. And what's fascinating about that vision is you and I can imagine that if someone came in here and did that, our first reaction would be, what the hell are you talking about? And who the hell are you talking to, right? We would take offense. And you'd think that that was the experience that most in the crowd had, but there were really multiple layers of crowd on that riverbank of the Jordan. There were those who came because they felt called to participate in an act of resistance. Resistance to empire, resistance to the ritualized stratification that was being perpetuated by the religious and political authorities. If you think about baptism in a river as being the antithesis of the Roman bath system and a critique of the way in which religious authority manipulated the mikveh, right? The ritual bathing process, then you recognize that what's happening in the river is not just about personal piety and being saved and recognizing the special nature of one human being. And Jesus knew this, which is why John the Baptist is important, right? Because it's not about John. And it's really not about Jesus either. It's about what Jesus recognized in that act that he saw as the foundation of his lifetime's work. Those who showed up to witness this weird spectacle, who were there because John seemed more a threat to well-ordered life than empire, than a harbinger of love, met someone who was unwilling to speak anything but truth to power. Those used to the veneration of others because of their social status probably didn't find John all that welcoming. And the Gospels tell us in no uncertain terms how he probably responded to their presence. Brood of vipers, indeed. And let's be clear, he lost his head for it. Luke, interestingly enough, is the only gospel that includes a second exchange with some of those who have gathered, who, having heard John's condemnation, ask him, "What should we do?" His answer? Share what you have, your clothing, your food, whatever. Do not accumulate more than you need. Do not take advantage of others. Do not intimidate others and violate others. Pretty simple, yes? And yet, if you dig deeper into it, you discover that it is a foundational commentary on the economy of empire and the stratification of the community commanded by it. For instance, one set of scholars note clothing was a valuable possession, and that one either always wore, or those who had two tunics wore one over the other, or even stored them in a vault. It seems that the possession of two tunics distinguished the better situated of the little people from the poorer. An outer garment was such a valuable possession of the poor that it could serve as security or could be stolen. John teaches those gathered that justice begins in the small, steady acts that say, "You are not alone." Today we see this in neighbors who form rapid response networks when immigration raids sweep through their streets. They stand at windows and corners, not with weapons, but with watchfulness. And some die for that. They carry no authority except the authority of love. And that does not die when they die. They remind us that justice is not abstract. It is the courage to show up when someone's dignity is at risk. We see it in the hands that sort produce at community food centers, in the volunteers who drive mobile pantries down rural roads, in the clinics that prescribe fresh vegetables alongside medicine. These are not grand gestures. They are the quiet insistence that no one should go hungry in a land of abundance. They are the truth made visible that feeding one another is older than any government program, older than any law, older than any nation. We see it in the people who refuse to let health care become a privilege for the few, in lawmakers who cross party lines because their constituents can't afford to wait, in advocates who gather stories of families facing impossible choices, in clinics that open their doors when their federal protections shrink. This too is resistance, the refusal to let suffering be normalized. All these acts, watching over one another, feeding one another, healing one another, are threads of the same tapestry. They are the ancient practices of communal care that have carried humanity through every age of uncertainty, including this one. Fundamentally, what John introduces is the main thesis of Jesus' entire ministry, and this is where I find the Gospel of Luke most compelling. The Christian church has theologized and personalized the scene of Jesus' baptism in ways that completely shield most of us from seeing it as anything other than celebrating the unique and special nature of the prophet. And yet, if read as a whole, the scene described earlier over coffee a millennia ago is actually more of a social and prophetic commentary on the state of the world under the auspices and control of empire, and a call to a different way of being. It's a call to represent a different ethic, to live differently in a world that wants to prescribe every aspect of our existence to benefit someone or something else. It calls us to consider the importance of a different way of being as a means to curtail the increasing control of empire as it widens the gaps between rich and poor, between citizen and alien, friend and stranger, labor and management, white superiority and racial other, housed and unhoused, healthy and sick, old and young, heterosexual and non-binary, the employed and the jobless. It is a call to return to the vision of community united by its humanity, not a nation divided by competing loyalties. Some have called it a return to Sabbath economics. I like that phrasing. An ancient vision of equity based on the lived experience that recognized the deadly and divisive force of inequity, or sustained inequity, if you will. It's an economic vision rooted in Sabbath traditions, the day of Sabbath, the day of rest, where we discover we are more human beings than human doings. The the Sabbath year, when we rectify inequity, when that calls for regular dismantling of systems of stratified wealth and power so that everyone has enough, emphasizes voluntary and community-reinforced redistribution of assets, trusting in the abundance rather than in scarcity, and the circulation of resources for the common good. And while it's an ancient vision, it's one that is supported by the most modern social scientific analysis. Those of you who are engaged in social action study, I highly recommend the book Spirit Level: Why Greater Equality Makes Societies Stronger by Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett, who argue that in wealthy nations, the degree of income inequality, not average income, best predicts the wide range of social and health problems. More equal societies, it turns out, consistently experience better outcomes across physical health, mental health, violence, education, trust, and overall sense of well-being. The authors show that once a country is wealthy enough to meet its basic needs, further increases in average income do not improve well-being. Let me say that again. Showing that in a country that is wealthy enough to meet its basic needs, further increases in average income do not improve well-being. Instead, the size of the gap between rich and poor predicts outcomes such as physical health and life expectancy, mental illness and drug abuse, obesity, educational performance, violence, prison rates, teenage pregnancy, social mobility, and trust and community cohesion. And it's not just that inequality and equity affect those who have less, it's a social system that makes the entire community vulnerable. Even the affluent fare worse in unequal societies because of social fragmentation and distrust and stress affecting the entire population. The authors argue that humans are acutely sensitive to social status. In unequal societies, people experience constant evaluative threat, fear of judgment, chronic stress, heightened competition, and social withdrawal. You recognize any of those? Both the ancient wisdom of our faith traditions and our social sciences point to the need for efforts to reduce the gap between haves and have-nots. Progressive taxation is one way of accomplishing part of this. Strengthening social safety nets is another. Making certain we have adequate worker protections. Making certain we have public investment, not just private. And that we work for structural changes that reduce the gap between the wealthy and the poor. Our ancient traditions call for debt release, land return, mutual aid, and anti-hoarding disciplines based on a vision that the world itself was abundant enough for everyone's needs, but not everyone's greed. Clearly, we continue to face, as a country and as a world, is fundamentally energized by all of this, and we're still being told that the fundamental threats to our well-being are from outside, those others, however they're identified, while this could not be further from the truth. There's a moment in Scripture, quiet, almost easy to miss, when the Israelites step out of their tents at dawn and in the middle of their desert journey and find the ground shimmering with manna. It's a story about hunger, yes. But even more, it's a story about trust. The God of their understanding, who's a creative force of the universe, gives them what they need for a day, no more, no less, and the rule is simple: gather enough, do not hoard it, trust that tomorrow will bring enough again. Ched Myers calls this the beginning of Sabbath economics, an economy rooted not in fear but in sufficiency, not in accumulation but in circulation, not in anxiety but in rest. And we hold that ancient story alongside this very modern one we just heard. The authors of Spirit Level sift through mountains of data from wealthy nations and the United States, and their conclusion is startling in its simplicity. The wider gap between richer and poor, the more every part of society suffers. Not just the poor, not just the vulnerable, everybody. Inequity, it turns out, is not merely unfair, it's toxic. It corrodes trust, it fuels violence, it frays mental health, it isolates us from one another, it makes us sick. Suddenly, the manna story from so long ago doesn't feel ancient at all. It feels diagnostic. Because what the Spirit Level describes with charts and graphs, the Sabbath tradition names with spiritual clarity. When some gather too much, the whole community suffers. When resources stop circulating, life stops flourishing. When fear drives accumulation, anxiety becomes the air that we breathe. And so we remember, justice is not only the work of courts and congresses, justice is the work of communities who refuse to abandon one another. Justice is the neighbor who says, I will stand with you. It is the volunteer who says, come to the table, there is enough. It is the advocate who says, your story matters, and I will not let it be forgotten. In a time when fear is used as a tool of policy, we answer with presence. In a time when scarcity is manufactured, we answer with generosity. In a time when care is rationed, we answer with compassion that overflows. This is the heart of communal resistance. Not anger for its own sake, but love that refuses to be quiet. I love that. Not anger for its own sake, but love that refuses to be quiet. May we be people who watch over one another with tenderness. May we be people who feed one another with joy. May we be people who heal one another with courage. And may our acts of care, small, steady, persistent acts of care, grow into the justice our world so desperately needs. Amen. And blessed be. Seems like a good time to take up an offering. I want to share with you the good news this week that in every event that I attended this week, in response to what was happening in the world, I ran into members of this congregation. Every single corner of this community. It didn't matter whether it was a protest out in freezing weather or whether it was a Zoom call where we were trying to grapple with how we're going to make certain we shelter the most vulnerable during the coldest part of the year. You were present. And to be honest, as people have turned to me over the last few weeks and say, what do we do? I keep saying, go deeper into what you're doing. Commit yourself even more to the ethic that you are already manifesting. And let the world know that you will not abide in the way that it is asking you to be. To me, that is the best possible news in this moment. We change the world that we touch, right? Not the world way out there. And if enough of us touch and change and transform the world around us, guess what? When we connect with each other, larger swaths of the world are changed. Let's continue to do that, shall we? That is the best possible news. So we take up an offering in service to that vision. And the mission and ministries of this congregation, an offering of love that is defined by that which is of your own making, so that you feel as though you are connected in other important ways, and so that we as a congregation continue to represent what is best in you in the world at large. And so we take up an offering, a loving way of being in the world. Let our offering be received. We will all be free. Number 169 in your hymnals, if you will. It's time for joys and sorrows. You know what to do. Form lines on either side of the sanctuary. Speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are, and then sign a candle if you want. If you're online, please put your joy or sorrow in the chat, and we'll make certain that Dawn shares it with us this morning. Other than that, batter up. Go ahead, Diane.
Morning, I'm Diane Mann. Excuse me. I just want to let you know that Deb Van Battenberg has been in and out of the ICU down on the Cape this week with complications from the flu. She needs your support. Just mentally think of her, maybe send her a get well card or something to the house, and I'm sure Craig will get it to her. Please do not call Craig because he's being overwhelmed with all kinds of things, and he requested that. He thanks you all for his love, for the love and support, but it's a little overwhelming to him at this time.
If you have messages for Craig, you can also give them to myself or Diane. We'll make certain that when we speak to them, we'll be able to do it.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I also have an ICU story. My brother-in-law's been in the ICU for 12 nights now. He had a spinal infection, and it got out of hand, and we're lucky that he's still alive because he was intubated for several days. And now we're getting used to our new normal because he's unfortunately paralyzed from the waist down. So we got a long rehab ahead of us, and hopefully he can find some resilience to live somewhat independently in the future. Thank you.
My name is Jessie, and I had a difficult week this week, and I found myself getting very wrapped up in what was going on in Minneapolis and felt that really hitting very close to home as a mom. And then on Friday in my town in Princeton, we had some really traumatic news that hit our community really hard. We learned that there was a man in town who really should not have been in contact with children, who has been volunteering in our school for many years, the very popular after-school program. And police arrived at his home on Thursday to serve a warrant for his arrest for child pornography, and there was a incident that occurred resulting in him no longer being alive. So it was a very difficult week, and I think my community is really reeling and just finding the world turned very upside down. So I was looking forward to coming here today for a little feeling of being around people who anyway, that's it.
We got you. We got you.
Hi, my name is Paul, and one of the concerns I had this week is, like, when we stand up for our rights, somehow I'm beginning to think we're target practice. You know, that thing in Minneapolis was really disgusting. Bunch of trigger-happy people, you know. And but I do have a joy, and the joy is I'm going to be seeing Chicago this afternoon at 1 o'clock. The sorrow is that the person I was going to go with didn't come, so I have an extra ticket. So if anybody is interested, okay, see me. But there's also one catch. You got to be standing aside of me while we're watching it. Yep.
Hi, good morning. My name is Catherine. My sorrow for this week is that my mom passed on Monday in hospice from endometrial cancer. And it's one of those things that people kind of say, like, oh, she's in a better place, but she really is in a better place. I have worked in healthcare for a little while, so I've seen people pass. I've never seen anyone pass in a way that they're suffering. So that was very hard, and I don't think I've really been able to process it yet. My joy is being here, and I want to thank you all and for accepting me and my daughters. I'm a single mom, so it's really been wonderful to come here and have some comfort, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Betsy. Most of you know me as the director of the Loaves and Fishes Food Pantry. Very long time. My joy is actually a hope that I hope you will all feel after hearing this as well. And that is, this Saturday is going to be our regular distribution, but I won't be there for the first time in a very long time. And that is due to the fact that I will be now a representative of Project 351 at the state level. For those of you who don't know Project 351 and have not been involved in schools for a long time, it's a gathering on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend every year for the last 15, I think this is the 16th. I've been involved with it at my school for 14 years as the mentor. But an 8th grader is chosen through their school to join up with all the other 350, because there's 351 communities in Massachusetts, for a day of activism and community social projects in Boston for the day. So they get bused, everything is totally free. They get bused from their central locations, so I'll be picking up about 50 eighth graders from Price Chopper on Saturday morning to travel to Faneuil Hall to hear some motivational speakers, and then they get dispersed through different places throughout Boston, mostly schools, but on occasion the Greater Boston Food Bank as well. So I'm hoping I get assigned to that if that's one of the projects this year. So they just go for an uplifting day of, yes, I'm going to go back and help my community, and then they go back with a project that they're supposed to conduct at their individual communities. So I have worked with representatives from Princeton and all over our district for the past 15 years. So it'll be nice to actually represent at the state level. I'm in charge of 28 school districts that I've been keeping in contact with all fall. And so I'm kind of excited that I will miss Saturday with our amazing people, but Marilyn, you're in charge. So it'll be great to come back and maybe catch up and let you know what happened and how elated I would feel after such a day of activism. So there is hope. There is hope for our future, eighth graders all the way.
Hi, my name is Dawn Dowd. I have the honor of sharing joys and sorrows for our online community. Aaron Morrill writes, "A sorrow and a joy. After losing my dear brother-in-law, Tim, who you have so graciously held over his last few months, I've been moved to launch a program in Worcester and Central Massachusetts that serves grieving children and families. I look forward to sharing it with you in the coming months."
Hello there. I am Joan McGinn, and first my joy is that Aaron, that was a prophetic, wonderful delivery that you gave this morning. Delivery is the wrong word. Thank you so much. I know, and I apologize ahead of time, this is not a forum for speechifying. But the events of this week has gotten my Irish up, and it is hard not to respond. So I offer these thoughts because they have been simmering in my head for the last week. And excuse me, I did bring notes because I can derail myself so easily. These are the times that try men and women's souls. I've been buoyed or girled by Aaron's words, but also I really want to speak to trauma, resistance, courage, and community. And this happens at so many levels. Trauma at an individual level, a family level, a city level, a state level, a national level, and indeed, even at an international level. Aaron is an expert in trauma, and he can tell us, and I'm sure he will, about all the intricacies and the aftermath of trauma in people's lives. And it's unhealed trauma ramifications, as we saw in Minnesota. I feel trauma, and many of us do. I fear for the future lives of my son and my 3 grandchildren who will have to deal long-term with the aftermath of these events and these days to come. I see trauma in the death of this lesbian poet, Renee Good. But I see grace and resilience of her partner, Becca Good, who, I don't know if all of you heard it, but her response to what happened to her wife was not anger and revenge. It was grace and healing. And I think that's trauma moving to resistance and to resilience. I see clarity and resolve in Mayor Fry and Governor Waltz, even though he did drop the F-bomb, in that they are passionate but rooted and resolve to keep their communities safe, centered, and whole. I see unhealed trauma in the ICE agent who shot Renee Good. And I don't make excuses for him and what he did. It was horrible. But, as Aaron could tell us, his unhealed trauma from June when he was dragged by a car and had to go to a hospital likely contributed to what happened to Renee Good. So I pray for his emergence and his resilience. I pray and see trauma in the Somali community of Minnesota who have been called garbage by this president.
Joan, you're going to have...
Yeah,
We gotta go.
okay, I'm almost done. Who have been told that they eat cats and dogs. And they came in full force out in protest. So I salute them. I salute the 6,000 people in Minnesota who came and marched peacefully with nary a snowball thrown. And that is resilience. So, yeah, I worry about the people of Venezuela, Cuba, Greenland, and the world as they are threatened by this president. And the answer in this resilience is not despair, apathy, or rage, but resolve. This cannot stand. So, as Aaron said, join in community, resist, resolve, keep your peace, but move on. Resist. I light a candle for all of us in all these different levels of trauma and for the world. So thank you. Sorry about my speech.
Hello guys, I'm Michael. I have a joy. So I had the opportunity to collaborate with a couple of the nurses where I work and aides and another chef We fed at least 90 homeless the other week. We put together money and made a ham dinner and drove around Worcester. We also did it before Thanksgiving as well. I haven't been here for a while, so Happy New Year, everyone. So it just felt good that I got a couple people to help me do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ali. I wanted to share a joy. So both my sons, they go to summer camp, and a couple months ago, I got an email saying that they had both been recognized for a special award. And so on Saturday, we had the award ceremony, and so they were both really excited and really nervous to go. And we went, and they did great. And I'll just share the award that my younger son wore was called the Spirit Award. And I'll set the stage a little bit. I used to pick them up from camp, and he would be covered in dirt, like he was like rolling around. And so they announced the award, and they're like, these are for the campers who really wore our camp, and they really showed it. And I just immediately knew, I was like, that's going to be Amar, and sure enough it was. So thank you.
I think the Garden On team should pick him up right now. Let's be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come today with heavy hearts, with anger, with sadness, and with resolve. Help us have the courage to continue to face the world as it is bleeding and broken. Remind us that we have the strength to be something different in the midst of that. Help us to gather around those who help to buoy up community instead of dragging it down. Help us find spaces where our creativity and our resources, our time, our energy, our love and our passion can find common outlet so that all beings thrive. Help us to sever stratification and unite in the common bonds that remind us that we are not alone. Help us remember ourselves in the midst of a world that would help us strive for us to forget. And in the midst of all of this, let us remember just how precious and just how beloved we are. Amen, and blessed be. Would you please find your responsive reading on your insert with your order of service? In a world that urges us to hurry, to hoard, to measure our worth in what we produce, Sabbath invites us to loosen our grip on scarcity, to release the myth that we stand alone. Let us honor the sacred rhythm of work and rest, giving and receiving, tending and being tended. May this Sabbath practice open our hands and widen our circle. Let us be filled with gratitude for the abundance already here. Would you please join together in our closing hymn number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise in body or in spirit. we leave this gathered moment, may we carry with us the quiet wisdom of Sabbath, the reminder that we are more than we produce and the world is more whole when we choose enoughness together. May rest become an act of resistance. May generosity become a habit of the heart. May we measure our days not by scarcity or striving, but by the depth of our connection and the wideness of our compassion. Go forth knowing that abundance is not a distant dream. It is something we build, breath by breath, choice by choice, hand in hand. May this community strengthen you. May justice inspire you, and may rest restore you until we gather again. Go, my friends, in peace. Go in courage. Go in shared abundance. Amen, and blessed be. Are there any quick announcements?
Hi, I'm Kim. 1 year ago, I went to a concert called Rock Voices, and I could not stop singing and hum along with those ladies and gentlemen that were up there having a wonderful time. And I joined, and this is my 3rd season, and next Saturday I'm having a concert with Vicki and Marisa from our church, and 4 women from the downtown church are also in this. We have 110 members right now. We're singing some really great songs, like songs by the Beach Boys, Ozzy Osbourne, Supertramp, Adele, Prince, the Bangles, Cyndi Lauper, Earth, Wind and Fire, James Taylor, and a few more. I will put this up. Tickets are available. You can either scan the code or you can pay cash at the door, which is actually cheaper. And it's a great concert, 7 p.m. next Saturday at Oxford High School.
How many of you just had a flashback? Okay, really clear. Soup today is, let's see, is Christina here? Vegan corn chowder and carnivore chili. Just, those are your options. It's usually a suggested donation of $5, but no one goes hungry. If you haven't brought in cash, you haven't brought a card, whatever, we're feeding you, whether you want to be fed or not. So make certain you get soup. And there are containers to go for those of you who are going to be watching some game this afternoon and want chili or corn chowder to attend that. So plan ahead is all I'm saying. Once again, worship in this place has come to an end, but our service continues next with soup.